In the middle of a vast savanna on a moonless night, 8 to 10 people are lying around a camp. The flickering light only reaches a few bodies. Everything beyond that fragile boundary turns into a thick, solid black. One person in the group is fast asleep, their back turned to the darkness. Suddenly, just outside the ring of light, two pairs of eyes flash and quickly disappear. A burning log collapses, pulling the flames lower. If a predator can circle back from any angle in that 360-degree dark, who exactly is this single campfire protecting? The person closest to the flames? Or the entire group? The question isn't just whether animals are afraid of fire. The real question is how one tiny circle of light completely changed the way an entire group survived the night. Can a campfire actually stop a predator? We usually assume it acts as an impenetrable wall of light. But maybe we should look at it as an alarm system, a gathering point, and a broadcast of human presence. To understand the true power of the flame, we need to examine its four functions: light, warning signals, extended wakefulness, and group coordination. We are going to test this using the archaeological record, firelight conversations, the sleep patterns of the Hadza people, and modern lion deterrent light. First, we need to drop a tempting but overly simple idea that every wild animal shares the exact same reflex: see fire, run away. When we talk about a prehistoric campfire, we are not talking about a randomly burning stick. It is a fire placed in a deliberate location, with a stockpile of fuel constantly tended to, located close enough to the sleeping area, and maintained through a significant part of the night. Managing a fire requires environmental knowledge, foresight, and cooperation. Protection here also does not mean every animal cowers in fear, or that people inside the circle of light are completely immune to it. Out in the wild, protection is measured by earlier detection, faster awakenings, and making a predator's stealth approach much harder to pull off. The hunter now has to face and evaluate the risk of an entire group, rather than a lone individual. Predators are not a monolith either. Their reactions depend on the species, their hunger levels, their past experiences with humans, the terrain, or the wind carrying the smell of smoke. Whether or not there are food scraps lying around camp completely changes the. A dying fire with no one awake and placed far from the sleeping area is one thing. But a carefully tended fire, surrounded by a tight-knit group with a few people scattered awake and ready to rouse the others, is an entirely different system. When you strip away the myth from the flame, what remains is no less impressive: a small piece of technology that could alter the information, timing, and structure of an entire camp. The first layer of defense is local light. It allows humans to see faces, objects, add fuel, and notice movement right at the edge of the light. But firelight isn't a high-powered floodlight. Its intensity drops off rapidly with distance and is easily blocked. The second layer is the outward signal. From out in the darkness, an animal sees moving shadows, hears voices and snapping wood, smells smoke, and notices the erratic shifting of the light. These signals warn the animal that this is not a quiet or unmonitored target. It learns that this setup usually comes with risk. The third layer is extended activity. Studies show that nighttime conversations around the fire are completely different from daytime. People tell stories, discuss relationships, and share knowledge. The group doesn't just turn into a pile of motionless bodies the second the sun goes down. The fourth layer is distributed vigilance. You don't necessarily need an official night watchman standing at attention with a spear for hours. Natural differences create a continuous chain: the night owl, the parent soothing a child, the person getting up to add wood, or the early riser. This model creates spontaneous vigilance without needing a rigid guard schedule. And finally, the fifth layer, collective response. If one person hears a noise, they can listen closer, stand up, or toss in a log. The people nearby are instantly woken up. An approaching animal is no longer facing one sleeping human, but the coordinated reaction of several people at once. The fire doesn't need to light up the entire savanna. It just needs to help one person detect danger early enough so the rest of the group isn't caught off guard. This central system works best when the group isn't too large, everyone lies relatively close, and there is sporadic activity throughout the night. When a group gets too big or spreads out too far, a single point of light stops serving everyone equally. This model sounds logical, but how much of it can archaeology and field observations actually prove, and how much is still just an educated guess? Around 245,000 years ago, at the Valdocarros II archaeological site in Spain, early humans created hearth-like structures. Chemical traces point to controlled wood burning, linked directly to stone tools and animal bones. Managing fire here required cooperation, fuel selection, and planning. Archaeology confirms that controlled fire was there. However, its specific function as an anti-predator defense remains a deduction. Moving closer to the present, observing the daily life of the Jew, hoansi people shows how fire extends the social day. Daytime conversations usually revolve around work and but by the fire at night, the topics shift to storytelling, rituals, and social. The fire creates a shared waking time and a continuous hum of human voices. It doesn't just light up a space, it keeps the group behaving as a. When a group sleeps together, differing biological rhythms become an advantage. In a study tracking 33 Hadza adults over 20 days, researchers found that the total time everyone was asleep at the exact same moment was a mere 18 minutes. For 99.8% of the night, at least one person was awake or in a very light sleep. No one needs to win an all-night staying awake contest. Everyone just needs to suffer from insomnia at different times. A warning signal from one awake person can spread rapidly because everyone sleeps close together. This result perfectly aligns with a system of spontaneous vigilance, even if it doesn't prove there was a formal guard shift. Around Nairobi National Park, nighttime conflicts with lions are a serious survival issue for livestock enclosures. A system of flashing LED lights, designed to mimic a person walking with a flashlight, was installed. The results showed a significant drop in the risk of attacks at the lit enclosures. This study shows that light signals mimicking human activity can reduce attacks, though it doesn't prove every campfire has the exact same effect. But it does show that a small signal can represent an active group much larger than the light source itself. However, fire also creates a visual paradox. When you sit in the ring of light, your eyes adapt to that brightness. If you suddenly look out into the darkness, your rod cells need time to recover their sensitivity. The benefit is you can clearly see the people and objects nearby, but the cost is a severe inability to see deep into the dark. Sitting right next to the fire helps you see inside the circle, but makes shifting your gaze outward much harder. The evidence doesn't point to a perfect wall of fire. It points to a smaller, yet more reliable chain. Fire keeps people active. Awake people create warnings, and those warnings turn a sleeping group into an opponent ready to react. In reality, the fire doesn't need to physically touch everyone with it. If the group lies close enough, a warning can be transmitted through a shout, the rustle of someone standing up, or a chain reaction of waking bodies. The social radius can be much larger than the radius of the fire itself can't tell the difference between the rustle of the wind and a footstep. It doesn't decide to wake the others up, and it doesn't move toward the source of a sound. Humans are the real sensors doing all of that work. This is a human-operated defense system supported by fire, not a system run by the fire. A lone, sleeping human is a predictable target, but a group around a fire can move unpredictably, make loud noises, and react from multiple directions. A predator has to face multiple overlapping sources of risk, making a safe distance incredibly hard to calculate. To maintain that system, humans also have to protect the fire. Someone has to forage for wood, keep the fuel dry, feed the flames at the right time, and arrange the sleeping area based on wind direction. The fire only protects the group because the group spent all day protecting the fire's ability to exist. A single campfire might be enough for a small band, but as the number of people grows, those on the edges end up too far from the source of. The demand for fuel skyrockets, the sleeping area spreads out, and a single central point becomes inefficient. That is when more complex systems start to emerge. That system can reduce risk. But reducing risk is not the same as eliminating it. And sometimes, the fire camp itself creates new problems. The smell of roasting meat or leftover food can make some animals highly interested in a camp, regardless of the light. And wild animals can habituate to fire. Studies on those lion deterrent lights noted a shift in behavior. The lions just moved on to attack other enclosures or traveled further away. A deterrent signal sometimes just shifts the problem to a different time. Extreme weather can also cause the whole system to collapse. Heavy winds, rain, or damp fuel can keep the fire low, blow smoke into people's faces, and drown out warning sounds with noise. Moreover, staring too long at the flames creates a blind spot when looking out into the dark, meaning the person sitting closest to the fire isn't necessarily the best lookout. More importantly, a fossilized hearth in the dirt cannot tell us how many animals actually approached it that night. It doesn't record who stayed awake to add wood, or if an attack was actually prevented. A campfire can be a powerful layer of defense, but only when tightly integrated with camp location, the distance between members, and human vigilance. It is exactly this limitation that explains why the echoes of prehistoric fire still linger in our modern behavior. We aren't just drawn to the heat and the light, but to the feeling of a group sharing a state of vigilance. When modern humans build a campfire, the flames still arrange us in the exact same way. Faces turn toward the center, bodies pull close together, and voices blend into a shared space. When a strange noise breaks from the dark, the conversation stops instantly. Multiple heads turn in the same direction, and information is shared immediately. While not specifically an anti-predator function, the nighttime storytelling of the Jew, hoansi helps build networks of relationships and trusts the core elements that make a group coordinate smoothly. Those flashing lion lights are just a technological version of this principle. The moving light represents surveillance, broadcasting the message that active humans are present. The echoes of this are everywhere. A motion sensor light flicking on in a driveway, or a group of people walking together at night feeling safer than walking alone. What they share isn't the lighting technology, but the signal. Someone is here and someone is watching. So when we look back at that tiny flame in the middle of the night, the answer doesn't lie in the size of the fire, but in the size of the human system it manages to connect. Back to that vast, dark night from the beginning. The flames are dying down. Someone in the group wakes up and tosses in a dry log. Suddenly, they hear a faint rustle just at the edge of the light. They don't need to clearly see the animal. They just sit up straight and shake the person next to them. Instantly, several others are awake. The eyes in the darkness silently slip away. So, could one campfire really protect an entire small group? Yes, but not because the firelight casts an impenetrable magical ring. It protects by keeping the group physically centralized, extending the hours someone is awake, making the human presence obvious, and allowing a small warning to ripple out and wake everyone. If the fire dies, the group scatters, or no one reacts. That effectiveness drops. Fire is often praised as the technology we use to cook, stay warm, and see in the dark. But perhaps its greatest use was its ability to organize behavior. It decided who sat where, who was awake, who heard what, and how many people one person could wake up. One fire did not protect every person by itself. It helped every person protect everyone else.